All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started. Do we have everybody? Anybody that's absent, raise your hand. Okay. My name's Dwayne Jewell, Regional Solutions Manager with ACDI. We are the largest distributor of PaperCut in the globe, actually. We distribute in Canada, U.S., Mexico, Latin America now. How many of you in here know what PaperCut is, have ever sold it? 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow, congrats. My last two classes, I don't think could spell PaperCut. Anyway, that's great to hear. So PaperCut, for those of you that don't know, is a print management cost recovery software solution. We are going to jump right in. I only have 187 slides, but we're going to work through these really quick. A difficult test at the end. Just kidding. So PaperCut Basics, a little 101. PaperCut is a software, sits on a server. We then can track all users and all printing at that point. And what I mean by all printing is not just MFPs, not just network printers, but we can also do desktop or USB printers as well. We can track those. So when I say track all printing, I mean all printing, okay? And when I say all users, we are user licensed. So the first question I'm going to ask you when you ask me for a quote is I'm going to say how many users, okay? And a user is anybody that presses print. That's a user to us, okay? Again, we are software. We would typically set on a server, although servers are not requirement in our world. And we work with any platform. We're not just bound to Microsoft. We work with Mac, Linux, Novell, even green screen printing. We can capture a lot of that information as well, okay? So never let an environment slow you down. And we work the same across all those environments as well. So the user license gets you tracking, gets you all of our reporting. It absolutely gives you every feature that you're going to see today. We're not modular. I'm not going to ask you to buy an additional product or a piece later on. Again, I just need to know how many users, okay? The second license is the MFP license. The MFP license also gets you the ability to track copy, fax, and scan. Anything off the glass, we can now track as well. That license gets you a couple other things. One thing it gets you is it's called secure printing. You will also hear it referred to as pull printing. Some people will say find me printing, follow me printing. It's really all the same thing. And what that is when you print now, we're going to hold your print jobs, let's just say at a print server, until you walk up to a device, and that device is going to ask you to log in. So I need you to identify yourself. You can then at that point release your print jobs, okay? So one big thing this does, really probably the biggest thing it does, is most of the time you're going to see a 20% cost decrease or 20% less print goes on as a result of implementing secure print, okay? So that's a really big number. If they were printing 10,000 pages today and you put this in tomorrow, they're going to probably print 8,000, all right? Saves a lot of money, right? It does that for a number of reasons. I think Big Brother is probably a big impact as anything. When people realize they're being tracked, they start to become accountable, right? We force accountability. All right. Secure print also addresses document security concerns. Okay. In hospitals, I can't walk into a hospital or any healthcare environment. If I see a piece of paper laying around a printer or a copier, they're in PHI violation immediately. So they can't do that. They have to have something like secure printing in place. So on the device side, when I log in, and let's go ahead and show the login process, typically I can log in with a prox card, a username or password, or in this case, I just have a simple PIN code. I can log in and I can see my jobs. I have 3 jobs held in a print queue here. I can highlight them one at a time. I can print them. I can delete them. Or I could choose print all and print everything. Okay. At this point, let me go ahead and print this one. You'll see my queue changes back to just 2 jobs. So that's the process. Again, what we see most of the time in today's environment is I notice all of you have prox badges to get in the doors. We would have a little reader over there. That way prevent somebody from having to come up and type a username and password in. Some people would call that cumbersome. To a bean counter, they're not going to care if they get 20 or 30% cost savings. So the other benefit you get to secure printing is a cool thing called Find Me Printing. So since we're holding the print jobs at a server, if Sally walks up to the machine and it's maybe out of toner, out of paper, whatever the case is, she can then walk down the hall to the next device, log in, and release her print jobs. Okay, we're not printing to a device. With PaperCut, we're going to set up what we call a virtual print queue. You're going to print to it, we're going to hold it, and you can release the job anywhere. Now that can be per floor, it could be an entire building. I just set up a company and we set up a virtual print queue for all their offices across the US. San Francisco, Atlanta, Chicago, New York. Have one print queue, they can fly to any office and release their jobs. The jobs will stay in the print queue until the company decides they want them deleted. Quite often I see companies that will leave them in there for 4 hours, some are 8. Every once in a while somebody wants to leave the jobs in there for 2 or 3 days. But if you literally don't walk up and print your job within that amount of time, we will delete the print job. Yes, we will automatically delete those print jobs. Yes, sir, we sure will. So it just goes back to the cost savings. Not only can Find Me Printing work for devices that we have embedded like this right here, but we can also make it work for single function printers. So I can take a small single function device, add a little network card reader to the side of it, plug it into a USB port, and I can then release my jobs at that device as well. Okay? So and we can do this across really the entire spectrum of MFPs that are manufactured today, whether they're Canon, whether they're Toshiba, whether they're Konica Minolta, Sharp, Xerox, Ricoh, we don't really care. We operate the same way on all of them, okay?
So there's a card reader on the side of a single function printer?
You could, absolutely.
So how do you see what job?
You don't. You don't have the queue management that you do here, obviously, because there's no display, right. But I can still have that. And a lot of times,
just start printing it,
yes, it's what I would call a dumb dump. So it just dumps everything that you have in the queue. But a lot of times a business will, they'll identify a couple of, or a handful of maybe big network printers that they want to add into the mix. So, average selling price. I like to show this to show the scale of how we scale up and down. We sell a lot of $300,000 and $400,000 deals into big hospitals and higher ed institutions and really big businesses, but we sell a lot of $1,500 deals. Okay, just to give you an idea, 4375 is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 150 users, 3 or 4 devices, maybe 4 or 5, maintenance and support for a couple of years, something along those lines is kind of what you're looking at there. And we are licensed in these 3 categories that you see across the bottom: commercial, education, and then professional or legal, which is actually be engineering mostly as well. Any place that wants bill back, if I need to bill back the cost of a print job to a specific client, then we would use the pro version at that point. So we all know this to be true. Knowledge is power. I can only manage what I measure. Most of your clients you're talking with are not effectively managing or even measuring what's going on. They're not tracking all the printing. They know the statement that they get from you at the end of the month, how many clicks they made on their copiers, but what I'm talking about is the next step. You know, if you ask them, you know, Mr. Customer, do you know who's printing? Do you know what they're printing? When they're printing? They can't answer those type of questions for you. Would anybody in here sign up with a bank today that didn't offer online banking? No. All that information is very important to us. I checked mine yesterday. I check mine all the time. It answers these questions for us about our money. What if I told you there's a product out there that has an online banking dashboard built in for a business for what's going on with their output? It's PaperCut. It's a real-time dashboard. They can see who is printing, what they're printing, what's it costing me. And the business owner or any number of people inside of an organization could have access to this, okay? This visibility alone will sell this product, okay? We don't even have to talk about saving 20% or 30% on reducing your output. Just having this available to me, this real-time information. We all want our information now. We don't want to wait till the end of the month to get a bank statement anymore. I don't.
After the actual image, so if whoever it is who's tracking that, does it actually show them what they're printing? Like you had mentioned that you could see what they're printing.
Yes. So the question is, can we actually capture the image? And the answer is yes. I have a slide about print archiving in a little bit, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. Yeah, great question. So here's where we answer those questions. Here's a cool report. Shows who printed, what they printed, you know, when, where. This happens to be a denied print jobs report. So at the end of a week or end of a month, I could print this out. And I believe it totals at the bottom. You know, I could go back to a business owner and say, we saved you $500 by denying jobs based around criteria that you gave us. Maybe we're not going to allow printing from certain web URLs. Maybe we're not going to allow printing after hours. You know, whatever the case is. Another cool report that we have is the executive summary, and I thought I had more of these. I use this, you'll have to spread the love a little bit. I use this executive summary after installing a trial or proof of concept. I can go back 30 days later and I can see that in my color composition and my duplex composition, I can see what numbers I can give that business owner, their real numbers, what's really happening in their environment. Maybe they're 90% color. Maybe they're 90% simplex. Well, we can have a major positive effect on their bottom line by putting in some cool rules that we'll look at here in just a minute. I can see top printers, top users. Use a report like this to help me right size their environment. It's a great quarterly review report as well, you know, especially for a place that already has PaperCut. So if you ask me to do a demo for you, which I will certainly help with, we'll spin up a webinar. I will hop into the PaperCut dashboard, but I'm going to spend a lot of my time in the reporting section, because that's where we really fix the problems that most of these people are asking about. So some additional things beyond secure print, what can we do? Well, we have PaperCut rules and routing. So we can have pop-up messages that pop up under certain circumstances. Maybe this is a large job that's single-sided and we're giving an end user a little informational blurb about, hey, why don't you use two-sided printing here? You could save us X amount of money, okay? Our little pop-ups can be informational or they can be mandatory. Okay, we can kind of do it with a feather or a hammer, anywhere in between. I think most people will make the right decision. It's just that none of us, every time we press print, we really don't think about how much that print job costs. None of us really do. We can literally route a job. So maybe I have Maybe we left a desktop printer on somebody's desk for convenience. But if they try to print over 10 pages, I'm going to give them a little message, say, we're going to route this job down the hall because it's over 10 pages. It's going to save $1 or $2 or whatever the case is, okay? So very powerful job scripting that we can do. That we have 20 or 30 or 40 rules that you can literally just put a check mark in to enable, or we can customize these rules as well. I actually have an example that I want to show everybody of just a simple little rule that I put into place in, there we go. So I'm just going to print this color file, and I have a rule for this job that says if I print something in color, it's just going to say please consider printing in grayscale. This job is going to cost $1.20. I could even have another column there that said if you print it in black and white, it's going to be 12 cents. I could have some action items that say, okay, go ahead and convert this to black and white. This is just a kind of a canned recipe that we have in there that I turn on. So the rules in routing are very, very powerful and can actually take that ROI or take that cost savings number really to a, I don't know why it wasn't going back. Legal market, client billing. So different kind of pop-up, but it's basically asking me that when I print, choose a client, maybe a matter number to associate the cost of this job with, right? Pretty simple. I think legal is our fastest growing vertical right now, only because we scale down into small law offices really well. You know, for maybe a couple $1,000s, they can have a pretty high-tech system that will help them with that. In addition to seeing a client list here, if I had this turned on, when I log in here, it's going to ask me who do I want to associate the price of a copy job with, or scan, or fax, okay? I can still maybe search or type in a client number, and then the cost of that copy job would be associated there too, right? So we know lawyers bill back for everything. Most everything anyway, right? Mobile. PaperCut has 2 or 3 mobile solutions built into the product that the customer can use at no additional cost, okay? But what I want you to get out of this, and there's a number of third-party solutions, there's one down the hall and it works great. When we get the print job in from that mobile solution, when we get it into the PaperCut ecosystem, I'll call it, we can wrap the same levels of control, rules and routing, all that same stuff that you get when you print from a desktop computer, we can apply to a mobile print job as well, okay? Still hits the secure print queue, you still gotta go walk up and log in to release your job, okay? So mobility is more and more is driving the sale of PaperCut, and I would encourage you to get with Josh or Chris or one of those guys if mobility is a driving force. And let's just make sure we're putting the right product there on the front end to help the customer. Environmental impact. So we have 88 reports standard. There's probably 10 or 12 of those that are wrapped around environmental impact reports. But we also have this cool desktop widget that literally pops up on a computer and will show you your specific environmental impact, how much I'm costing today, for the week, for the month. I included this. I'm seeing more companies This being a driving force, I just sold a humongous deal with an energy company, a big oil company in Houston, and they could care less about saving money, rules, they didn't care. All they cared about was their environmental impact, and this literally sold the deal. It was a humongous deal. Frankly, it closed in weeks because really of this right here, okay? Everybody says there's a lot of environmental conscious people in the Denver area, so voila. Print archiving, sir. Not only do we collect metrics about the print job, who, what, when, where, why, how, but I literally can save an image of what was printed, okay? Really big in healthcare, which seems a little bit of an oxymoron considering the HIPAA things, but I think it's because of HIPAA that this is become popular. Okay, this is a differentiator for us. Most of our competition cannot do this, okay? We have had, there was a high school kid in Texas recently that had got a hold of some network passwords he wasn't supposed to have, and he started printing door access codes and homeland security violation stuff, and he obviously no longer goes to that high school. He got in a lot of trouble between print archiving and CCTV that the school had. I think the young man got in a lot of trouble. So this can be turned on per user or per printer. It does not have to be across the entire fleet, okay? And only people that we deem or that the business owner deems needs to have access will have access to this. So I could literally have an IT guy could have access to PaperCut to manage my PaperCut system. He might not have access to seeing what's actually people are actually printing, okay? So, why? Why bother selling a solution in general? And most of this is not really specific to PaperCut. 8% higher margins on hardware when I sell it in tandem with a solution. Don't let PaperCut do its job. Our job is to reduce cost, reduce overall output. So keep your margins where they need to be and let this solution do what it's supposed to do. In addition, another number I don't have here is that for every $1 of solution sold, you are selling an additional $9 to $10 in hardware, in professional services, in drag-along sales on the back end. So really big numbers there. You know, talk about something different. When you walk into a CEO's office and there's 3 or 4 copier bids you see laying there on the desk, don't talk about speeds and feeds. You know, ask him, are your users accountable for printing? Do you know who's printing? You know, have a different conversation. Separate yourself. Quick ROI. I oftentimes will break the price of the software down to per user, and in some instances it's a quarter or 50 cents a user, and I can say, man, if I can save you 4 color copies, I just paid for this product, okay? Really simple, really quick. Our ROI is usually in just a few weeks, okay? Occasionally I'll see it be 6 or 7 months. But that helps with the sales cycle. So it's a shorter sales cycle. We are fixing hard cost problems. We're fixing problems that exist in a profit and loss statement or on a GL sheet, okay? Not quite the, you know, we're not asking somebody to recoup time with a doc management system or something. Who are my opportunities? Well, I say, do you call on customers? Do they have employees? Do those employees print? Well, we just qualified 99% of your client list, right? So obviously, in a very small environment where 1 or 2 users, 5 users, it can be a little tougher to cost justify, right? Once I get above 25, 50, it becomes easier. Let's be real about that. But again, you know, have those conversations, ask them those questions. Do you know who is printing? Are your users accountable? Tracking user activity keeps printing legitimate, all right? That's really the big brother effect, if I'm being honest. Document security, again, a number of companies don't care about saving money, but they do care about that sheet of paper that's laying out there for anybody to pick up or it to walk out their door, because it is potentially a security risk or a liability. Visibility, we've talked about that with the online banking analogy, cost, mobility, green initiatives. These are all the things that we address. These are the things we do well. These are the things you can demo very easily. Again, if you need help with a demo, get a hold of me, get a hold of Josh, get a hold of Chris. We can do an online demo. I'll spin up a webinar. It takes about 20 or 30 minutes. We'll ask a few questions, find out what their pain points are, and show them how we can address those. We do have a free 40-day trial. Our close rate is normally 50% right now. With trials, it goes up to closer to 75%. So if you can get them to that point, you're virtually assured to sell, right? And we do have another product, NG, that I'm not going to talk about that today, but I wanted to include it on there. And finally, just kind of in summation, some of our advantages. Print archiving, our education pricing. Does everybody in here sell to K through 12 and higher ed? We're not? Okay. So just so you know, PaperCut was originally created for and only sold in education. And the developers in Australia spend a lot of time and money still today marketing in the education space. I mean, we don't have to do it, they're doing it for us, right? So we should all take advantage of that. We rarely lose an education RFP, not just because we're so dirt cheap in education, but the product fits really, really well in education, okay?
Does Josh give us the pricing for education too?
Yes, yeah. Josh will get you all your pricing. So, again, all-inclusive, everything that you've seen today is included. We're not modular. You don't have to come back to me and buy something else later. 40-day trial. We do track wide formats. So I can track wide format printing by linear foot, square foot, or page size. Not everybody does that. There's a couple of off-the-wall programs that can, but most of the mainstream cost recovery, they don't touch wide format.